Hello and welcome to another painting video. In this video I'll be painting the new Rotbringer Sorcerer model. I wasn't even planning on getting this model, but it seems that I did. This model is very cool though and has lots and lots of small details. Let's get to painting. First I will tackle the diseased skin. I base coat with Fenrisian Grey. Then I shade the skin with some Hexwraith Flame. Now I use a stippling technique to add the original base color, which is Fenrisian Grey. Next, I add a highlight of Palette Switch Flesh. You could also add a step in between where you mix Fenrisian Grey with Palette Switch Flesh. To bruise the skin, I shade with Druchii Violet. I mainly focus on the stomach and the recesses of the arms. Now I will stipple on Palette Switch Flesh to highlight the skin again. I tried to paint this skin in a different way to make him stand out a little bit more with all my Blight Kings. I'm not very happy with the stomach yet, but I will fix this later in the video. This sorcerer seems to be slowly mutating into a fly. The limbs I base coat with Black Templar. Then I add a highlight of Thunderhawk Blue. And a second highlight of Elysian Grey. Finally, I add dots of Palette Switch Flesh to make the limbs look more shiny. I am a big fan of models with weird mutations. You could also add some art coat to the limbs to make them even more shiny. The robe and cowl will be green as used in my army. I base coat with Death Guard green. I need 2 layers to get a nice even coat. Then I shade the robe with Agrax Earthshade. Now I'll be dry brushing Elysian Green on the robe. And another dry brush of Gore-Grunta Camo. To dirty up the robe, I shade with Hexwraith Flame. And finally, I add a highlight of Gore-Grunta Camo. This robe fits nicely in my Maggotkin army. This color really suits the Maggotkin. Alternatively, you could go for like a dirty brown robe or maybe purple. There are many options. To add some diversity, I will add a purple cloak. I base coat with the contrast paint Genestealer Purple. Then I add a layer of Genestealer Purple as the former paint is very splotchy. Finally, I highlight the cloak with Slaanesh Grey. An alternative could be a brown cloak, as that colors nicely with the green, but I am using purple cloaks throughout my army. Let's paint some wood. First, I use the contrast paint Wildwood. To age or rot the wood, I shade with Athonian Camoshade. Then I add a highlight of Baneblade Brown. As you can see, I've also painted the handle of the scythe. The very weird backpack is base coated in Rhinox hide. Then I add a highlight of Rhinox hide mixed with Baneblade Brown. And finally, I add a highlight of Baneblade Brown. Now to tackle all the metal and brass parts. First, I base coat everything with Iron Warriors. Now I base coat all the brass parts with Balthasar Gold. Next, I shade everything with Agrax Earthshade. Apply thickly. Now I highlight everything with Runefang Steel. I also add some damage with a stippling motion. All the metal parts get added some Ryza Rust. And lastly, I add Nihilakh Oxide to all the parts that have deep recesses. A tried and true method of painting easy metal and brass. Looks nice and dirty for any Maggotkin model. These very cool fly wings on his belt get a base coat of Aethermatic Blue. Then I highlight with Palette Switch Flesh. Make sure you base coat the wings with Wraithbone first, so you don't get any weird splotches on your wings. Now to work on some small details. First, I base coat the skull with Ushabti Bone. Next, I shade the skull, the scrolls of paper and the candles in Skeleton Horde. Next, I use Screaming Skull to highlight the skulls and to layer the scrolls of paper and candles. Now I coat some of the extra straps on his back with Gore-Grunta Fur. The flames are very easy. Make sure they are nice and white and then coat them in Hexwraith Flame. Alternatively, you can also add some Biel-Tan Green to the outermost edges. Now I use a very fine brush and Abaddon Black to scribble on some text on the big paper scroll. I also save some room to draw some Nurgly symbols. Next, I use Biel-Tan Green to color the symbols. Using a wash for this is a good idea as it won't ruin your line work. It's always a challenge to freehand and I haven't done it in ages. Definitely need some more practice, but as you can see it does add a lot to the model. There is a tiny Nurgling hand clawing his way out of the backpack. I base coat this in Kislev Flesh. Then I shade in Seraphim Sepia. And finally I highlight with Krieg Khaki. Now I add Nurgle's rot to wherever I want, especially the stomach to make it look a bit better and grosser. Now I also add some blood for the blood god to gross up the model even more. And here we have the new Rotbringer Sorcerer. I'm happy I did actually buy it as it is a wonderful addition to all the gross models of my Maggotkin army. I use a lot of stippling for layering and highlighting. He also shares a lot of colors with the rest of my army, but I did try to make some things new to make him stand out a little bit more. Next up, I'll be painting the Sloppity Bilepiper. And also check out my Instagram where I post updates on projects and behind the scenes stuff. For now, thanks for watching and praise Nurgle!